Great peace, Shakoki. I was just sitting there thinking about how Native Americans have tricked everybody into thinking that they were the progenitors of the land. With these oral traditions and these made up stories and stuff like that. I was just thinking, like, people really believe that stuff, right? But this is what I thought, right? I said they're really no different than someone who has a green card. Because African Americans, they're not required to have green cards. But you see, like, Native Americans particularly, they're really no different. They're really no different. Because here they are, their numbers are not really large, but they're like centered in the middle of the map of the US, North America. And their landscape is like, where they're constantly in need of the federal government to give them things. Like the Interior Department, they gave that position to a Native American woman. The Interior Department, right? The BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they gave that to someone who would basically fit the profile of a Lumbee, the person who's in there now. She's very highly amalgamated, right? So I was just thinking, like, they're really no different than someone who has a green card. Um, I think about this all the time. I say, what if Americans, African Americans, right? What if they were to resettle out throughout all those lands, and like, how would that really be like? Um, will it cause another civil war? You know what I mean? Like, what would it cause? Because they've gotten so Native Americans that they will talk about what African Americans are doing, but they're not really siding with it. They don't like it. They have this thing where they're calling African Americans pretendians. And to me, I can never understand that because, like, DNA, as much as people like to say do DNA, right? DNA says it supports the idea that African Americans were here in BC. We were in all parts of America, North, Central, and South in BC. Um, so it supports that, but they always say do DNA. And, if you do My True Ancestry, it's going to tell you exactly who you are. And it's going to put African Americans all throughout the map. So that's another thing that we have going for ourselves that they don't really necessarily like to side with. So to me, like, African Americans, they really got to get it together where they can kind of see what's kind of separating us from really taking the land back and actually being positioned to only just be onlookers, you know what I mean, visitors. Um, this land is ours, you know what I mean, and like no one can take it from us. And you just had the Ghanaian president come to the United States and deliver a speech and a reception uh, for the recognition that comes with who was enslaved. So, I want to see how that goes as well. I want to see how people kind of accept that and how it's going to come off in the next coming days. So they don't want to admit to that. And, hey, it is what it is. I'm not blaming Africans for enslaving us. I'm not blaming them because they didn't enslave us. I'm not blaming them for that. Um, you have to recognize something. Throughout history, people have continually to move and move and move. And if you're just like if you're just as equal as everyone else, right? You got 40 million in numbers. How did they enslave you? If you got 40 million in numbers, how did they enslave you? How did they enslave you if you got 40 million in numbers? It's just not possible. So we got to really relearn history and recognize like who was kind of like lied to and who was kind of like taken for. So that's all I really want to say in this video. I'll possibly come back with another one and talk more about other stuff. But that's all I want to talk about. Great peace, Yakoki.